Hi everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuk with Queen Bee Creations, and today we get to work on a different kind of project because of a thrift find that I made. So here's the find. I have this old kind of antique dresser top mirror. Oh, there you can see the camera. And what I'm going to do with it, rather than use it on a dresser, is I'm going to use it this way and make it into hanging decor. So the first thing that I need to do before I start looking at painting it is I actually want to add another element on the top. This is a very narrow, maybe little 1.25 wide band up here. And I'd like to make it into a shelf on the top. So it can be a mirror and you can still display some things above it. So what I do have is this little piece of trim. What I like about this, I mean, yes, it's got a rim, but it does mean that if you wanted to stand plates on it, then you have something to lean it against. So I am looking at attaching it on, and I took the liberty to cut it down to size and sand the ends. So I am looking here at wanting to wood glue it and clamp it in place overnight. So I'm going to look at doing that. I've kind of sanded off some of my bad edges. I don't know, other way. So I want to get that glued, clamped. Once it's dry, I'll put my nails in. So that's nice and firm, nice and sturdy, but it's easier for me to do the nails once this is all attached. I will go and fill in any of some of the places that don't look good, but actually it's looking pretty good for me if I just paint. So I think I'm okay, but I do need to do the wood glue and the clamping now, and then the nailing I can do once it's dry so that it all holds together for me so I get it straight. So that's my plan right now, is we are gluing and clamping and drying and then coming back. All right, I have my mirror all finished. Now, bear in mind, I've added this extra bar across the bottom, which you could use as is. You could use it just as like an extra ledge piece, making it a little bit more substantial, making it easier to attach this if you wanted to a dresser top. So the idea that we did with adding that board could simply be to provide greater use this way. But regardless of how we're using it, I need to get it painted. So I have elected to use, I'm just going to paint it simply. I mean, it's a lovely piece. And if you were doing it for yourself, meaning that you had a specific color and a look and a vibe you were after, then go for it. In this case, I want something that's much simpler in design, something that's going to fit a lot more decor areas, that's going to be a little bit more marketable for me because it's an awkward piece for me to store here in the shop. So I'm just thinking like a shop owner now, and I'm going to paint it white. But because I know that I want to do a bunch of distressing, I am actually going to paint it in beadboard with my DIY paint. So this is my clay-based paint that I carry here in the shop. And it does not have a built-in sealer. So unlike the Fusion Mineral paint or the Alchemy paint, it does not seal. So it allows me to be able to play with it in terms of dry and wet sanding, and then I will seal it after all that is done. But it just, I love this paint. I love this paint. And because I've been doing so much with alchemy right now, because it's a new paint in the shop and trying to show you how to use it, it's feeling neglected. So I'm gonna paint out a couple of coats for sure, because this is a white paint, right? Any white paint is going to need multiple coats because it's got the least amount of color in it. So it's got the worst opacity of any color. So anytime that you're painting white, you have to expect more coats than normal. So we're going over a very dark surface. I would expect that I'm probably going to need 3 coats because I tend to paint light. I'd rather have lighter coats than heavier coats, but that's me. And you do whatever works relative to the paint that you're using. And certainly if you're painting this darker, 2 coats would probably suffice. But I'm going to get this all painted before we come back and start playing with distressing and all that good stuff. But I just love it as is. I just love it nice and simple. So we're going simple for a change. For the mirror, now that this is all dry, couple of last steps. What I like to do when I use any kind of chalk paint, clay-based paint, any paint that doesn't have a built-in sealer, I like to take a really fine 320 grit sandpaper and just run it quickly over the surface. So I'm not so much distressing as I am taking off all those fine little particles that are sitting up in the paint. I'm knocking them off to create a nice, smooth texture. So I can continue to sand to distress, right? But mostly I'm looking to do it to get that smooth texture, to be able to even it out so that when I go to seal it, it's going to be nice and smooth. Then once I've done that, I can either dry sand it to distress using this, or I can take a wet cloth and I can simply, right? See how quick that goes. I can simply distress with the wet cloth. And I very often on the same piece will use both techniques because it gives me a very different look, sanding and wet sanding. So dry sanding and wet sanding. So I like to do a combination. And that's what I'm going to do with this. So I am going to dry sand the whole piece. You don't want to listen to that. And then go and wet sand and dry sand to distress in certain areas. So the first pass is just very quick to smooth it out, create a nice feel to the piece, and then I'll wet sand, and then I need to let it dry. While everything is all dusty, I also go and I take my little X-Acto knife and I just gently scrape away any of that paint that I have on the surface of the mirror. Might as well do all the dusty things at once so that when you finally go to clean, you're not making it dirty again. But this all scrapes off very easily. You can see this one big drip that I had here. Cleans up no problem. The last step for my mirror is to get it sealed. And I'm going to seal it with clear wax. Because this is a piece that's going to be decorative, it's going to hang, I'm not worried about having to seal it with a polyacrylic because it's not going to see a lot of traffic. It's not going to get banged or used or hot coffee put on it or anything like that. So I'm going to apply my wax. I'm just using a chip brush. I'm using DIY clear wax. Don't forget this piece here because ultimately this is our top. But I'm going to get the wax all over it. I've got my clean cloth to be able to wipe it back afterward, and it'll dry perfectly buttery, soft, and smooth. And then this piece is done and ready to be hung. This is our finished project. Oops. It's just, we added the shelf to it so that it could um, hang and have the shelf to it. Can put some little decorative plates up there, little jugs, I have little mini teapots. I mean, whatever you want to do in terms of a collection. It's a different way of being able to use these. Often, I have to tell you, I don't see them often, but I do see them in thrift stores. That's where I got this one for, I can't remember, $6 maybe. Because people don't know what to do with them anymore. They've got lower dressers. This has to sit up on a tall boy for it to be of use. Um, and, the sizing might not work. It's a great way to be able to turn it into a wall piece that is perfectly functional, perfectly usable now, and makes a cute little decor piece from that perspective. But you could also paint out the mirror. You could turn it into a chalkboard so that it hangs and it's a chalkboard. You could turn it into a sign. There's all kinds of things that you could do other than a mirror. I obviously finished it very simply because it's a little bit more practical in the store, but you could certainly paint it any color. You could use some transfers, climbing up the sides, a little bit onto the glass if you want, and going up the top. You have a lot more flexibility when you're doing it for you versus doing it for a store or your booth. I hope this gives you some ideas if you've got one of these floating around your house or tucked away in a back hall somewhere, or if you happen to be lucky enough to see one when thrifting. They've got a lot of functionality as wall decor rather than just sitting up on top of a dresser. Let me know what you think of this one, guys. Love to hear from you as always, and looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Until then, take care.